We've been put back on the bi-weekly schedule for 100 Years Quest, but what's funny is like the during the weekly schedule for all these fairy tale chapters, like it felt more like the way that it was when it actually was weekly. You'd get a bit per chapter, but it was set in that weekly one, so it's like, man, I didn't get not a ton happened. It was all really confined to one chapter, but for the most part, it was still pretty good, and we get another one next week. The second we get back to bi-weekly status, we got so much in one chapter. It was ridiculous. Like, we got all the info teased on the White Witch. We got a little info on Diablos and their Black Dragon Slayer Knights. We got we got this bit on their Dragon Force, like information regarding further information rather on the difference that 5th generation Dragon Slayers sit at, because we don't know a whole lot about them. Like, for instance, they straight eat dragons, but also they don't suffer from motion sickness. Now, this whole prediction for chapter 47 is going to relate to that, because not having motion sickness problems is a really big deal for a Dragon Slayer, because that was, the big drawback of dragon slaying magic. It has this crippling weakness to motion sickness because of the way that, dragon senses are, very heavy for a human body. And even ones that turn into dragons, the human form is still their original form that it kind of links to. Unless you somehow ditched your original form and became just dragon, I don't imagine that you would be able to kind of counter out that weakness to motion sickness. But for some reason, 5th generation Dragon Slayers have that. They're able to ignore that weakness. And I've been wondering, well, what exactly is the payoff from that? What is the switch out from getting rid of their biggest weakness? I was considering, well, maybe they got rid of their biggest strength. And for me, when you look at like dragon slaying magic as a whole, the fact that you can eat your element and regain your standard magic from not a lot of it was the biggest counter edge to the whole motion sickness sword. You only need to really get one real attack like eaten, and then it's like sweet, back to 100%. Doesn't heal wounds, but when it heals your stamina and magic, you're pretty much good. Now, we saw from Nebel when he ate the gum, because he's a sticky dragon slayer. Gum, being candy, sticky, very gooey and whatnot. That would be tied to his, and was able to power himself up. Because with these guys, they have weird kind of the dragon eaters all have weird types. It's not as straight as like Natsu has fire. You kind of look at it more of like Sting. Like Sting's is weird because he's not light dragon, he's a white dragon slayer. So if it's white magic, which kind of just falls under more of a holy aspect, but still, it's a little bit weirder. But with we do know from the latest chapter, Nebel said that the 5th generation Dragon Slayers, himself included, can also go Dragon Force, but theirs is different. Theirs is odd. And we know from Skullion, when he was talking to him right before the end of the chapter, he said that theirs is forbidden. The question is why? What is going to be different about their Dragon Force that changes the tone of general Dragon Force? Now, with Dragon Force, we've seen how it works and understand how it works on on a lot of characters. We have the first 2 instances from Natsu in Tower of Heaven at the Horatio and Seize arc. At the start point, when you get just like, oh, Dragon Force at its lowest levels, you just have scales. It's just plain scales. It still, look like your skin. And then higher levels, it will, actually look more toned to what dragon you are. Like Wendy doesn't get scales, she gets feathers, because sky dragons have feathers. And her hair turns pink for who knows what reason, but that being part of her magic. Natsu gets his fire horns, and though, like 2nd and 3rd gen, any Lacrima based Dragon Force hasn't been nearly as powerful as artificial or true Dragon Force. But at the same time, it's still Dragon Force. I mean, look at like Cobra, he's straight got like dragon arms. But it's still not entirely the same as something like, any of Natsu or Wendy's showings of them. With 5th gen, though, I'm wondering if instead theirs is going to be way more grotesque, kind of like, this monster here. And maybe permanent, like not like, oh, we go into it and it's no going back. It's maybe like a lasting effect. Because Dragon Force is essentially, and that's like an easy explanation, further pushes you down the line of becoming a dragon. Because dragon slaying magic and slayer magic in general will just change parts of your body to be like that of, whatever your slayer is. Like dragons, and you slowly become a dragon, and then you turn your lungs into dragon lungs, and then that's how you're able to breathe, said element and whatnot, your stomach, your hands and whatnot. It's to a degree, and that's why eventually, you start to become a dragon, because the overusage will slowly change over time, and Dragon Force just will further put you down that line, but temporarily. It will be like, oh, you're temporarily like this way more dragon-like. It gives you way higher of a boost. But as we've seen, it's not nearly as... It's not like, oh, you just straight turn into a dragon temporarily. You get like a boosted thing, like, you get the scales and whatnot, you get, or when he gets feathers. With the 5th gen, I'm guessing, like, again, there's just going to be more monster-like, or it's going to make him look kind of like almost like some chimera or hybrid between the two. And theirs will leave something permanent. Like, for instance, you got Nebel's eyes, like, he's got these weird... Would they still be compound eyes if it only 3 people's each? I don't know. 3 people eyes, and then after he ate the gum, they merged into 1 people. And he's got like the weird slashes on his face. Unlike a lot of Dragon Slayers who usually just have the elongated fangs, like he just has straight like shark teeth. Like maybe every time a 5th generation Dragon Slayer, goes Dragon Force, they will just have part of them permanently stay in that state. Like they have like a much smaller set of uses, which are much more, lasting drawback. And eventually they'll just straight, yeah, you're a dragon now. You're not turning back unless you somehow learn how to do it. Like, someone like Acmalogia or Eleftheria, you're stuck in the dragon form. It's just way less of a would it be not liability? I don't know. Way less of a actually, no, it'd be way more of a risk, rather. I think that's what I'm trying to go with. Just the much more unfortunate drawback, the way more lasting kind of like pull into being a dragon, as well as like the idea, because when we saw Irene is the one, when we saw her fully turn into a dragon, we saw the instance of when she stopped being, a person who's a dragon slaying magic. Well, they're always using dragon slaying magic, but fully become a dragon from the effects of dragon slaying magic. We haven't seen any of them lose control in that state. Like, Irene was definitely not mentally stable. Like, she was kind of crazy at that point. But at the same time, she was still in control. She still thought like a person. She thought like herself. And she was able to keep herself under control, even while pissed off, blowing up that castle and killing all the people that were torturing her. She still was, she still had control over her body. Maybe with the Dragon Eaters instead, there's going to be more of like a rampaging monster. Like, oh no, our mind slips when we use it as well. So it's the creature, like the form is taking over. And I think that would also be like a really good kind of like reason why it's forbidden. That danger risk that you're putting into it in the in that whole risk of using it. Again, we got a while until the next chapter, a week from Tuesday. It's going to be rough. We don't know, if we're going to get like another time of the year where we'll get weekly chapters or whatnot, or maybe if Wade and his team will eventually be like, we're ready to do weeklies instead of bi-weeklies. Could happen, but for now, we're back to bi-weekly, which is fine with me. And even though patience is like my lowest stat, I'm willing to wait for what's up ahead, because I'm very excited. I've been, very much been mulling over like the traits of 5th generation dragon slaying since, we found out that they weren't affected by motion sickness. Because when we found out about the 5th gen, it was like, oh, cool, new gen. What's going to be different about them? And then like the fact that they're not affected by the biggest weakness of the magic, it was like, oh shit, what else is different about these guys? Like, it's so much turned into a new direction that it's defying a basic staple of the magic, that there's got to be a lot of other stuff that, differs from their regular layout. But anyway, comment below, tell me your thoughts are about this and what your predictions are for the next chapter. Really appreciate your thumbs up the video, but from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.